I've been in telecom space for many years, working with something that was brought up this day. I was involved in standardizing the first MBMS version back in 2006, so broadcast on cellular networks. And then also I've been in a few different media companies from 2014 through 2025. And the last 5 years have been pretty crowded of acquisitions. So I've been I have been in 4 acquisitions from a leadership team perspective, where of the first 3 went through. I wouldn't say well, but they went through. And the last one crashed big time. So I guess that's why I'm here.
Awesome. And I mentioned that I want the audience to get involved, and I really mean it this time, because Johan has been through so much shit that I guarantee everyone here could learn something. So if you have some questions, then please throw your hands up and ask Johan something. And this is going to be well, I'm not sure how much you can say. You know, in the prep call, you said you wanted to kind of anonymize things a little bit, but this is kind of blowing that out of the water because the name is on the screen. So, Johan, I understand you are currently going through a lawsuit with your former employer.
Actually, I am done with mine.
Finished.
Yeah, it's finished. So I won.
Tell us all about
it. So we had one in. So on that company you see on the screen, which is the latest one, right? That actually had multiple companies. So it's a American mother company, and then multiple American daughter companies, and then two daughter companies in Sweden. And I have been running lawsuits against them in Sweden, and I actually won them as of 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
So I was in court, and I am, not the hand on the Bible, because we don't do that in Sweden, but all the rest, and so on. So that was it was actually a little bit of an interesting experience. We don't have the wigs and so on in Sweden, but all the rest was just as on TV. And we will see if I will be in more courts in the US as well. But in Sweden that's done. So that's good. So I'm pretty much through that process now. Yeah. So regarding the other lawsuits, I don't know. In the US they might take longer time.
Okay. So let's step back a little bit. Can you kind of tell us the kind of the first signs of when things were turning toxic at this former employer who cannot be named, but
yeah.
His name is on the screen.
So let me.
What are the red flags?
But let me. I will make this a little bit more general, because since I've been through 3 and in a 4th that didn't. There are actually similarities in some of these. But so I will share you with some of the signs that, or some of the warning flags that you should look for in all kind of acquisitions, or maybe in general, is if you have, and I've seen this in 2 out of these 4, but in one of them, it eventually sorted out, and I tell you how that sorted out as well. So it's often so in general, when you have like small or mid-sized companies where the founders are still very much involved in all the management, that sometimes the founders don't really, if you will, evolve with, as the company grows, the way how you manage companies becomes different, as you all know. And in 2 of the acquisitions I've been part of, the founders has still been very strong in the top positions, and if you will, maybe not always qualified really to run a company of the size the company is becoming, especially if you're acquiring a company that is sometimes even bigger than your own company. So what you see after the acquisition is something that is much bigger than it was when you started it. And in one of the cases where I worked prior to Ateliere, now I said it, but it was also somewhat challenging with the management, much due to that. But the big difference in that case versus the later one is that the first case was publicly listed. So the owners had means to influence management. So that's sign number 2. Look at the owners' structures, because if you have a bad management structure, if the owner structure is, to start with, known and maybe even good, there's a good chance that things can resolve. It often takes longer time than you think. Trust me, when you're in that, you think we need to fix this now, and you can't understand why it takes so long time. But if there is a good owner structure, it will take time, but it might very well resolve. So I think that's, in one of those cases, that was exactly the case. That a lot of people were even leaving because things weren't really working as they wished it would. But with some time, eventually things sorted out to the better.
How much detail can you share about the specifics of your lawsuit? Was that for wrongful dismissal?
That was for multiple wrongful dismissals, yes, and also not actually following the law in the process of how you do that. So it was both laying off people in the wrong, due to wrong reasons, but also how you do it. So, yeah.
Okay, and of course this.
And that one is, by the way, it's open. I think in Sweden all of those kind of lawsuits are open. So you might have to use some AI tool to translate it, but if there's one thing AI do well, I heard, is that.
Yeah.
So
of course, this is a very unique case because one of the founders has been under SEC investigation, and I had a source tell me a few days ago that one of the others, so obviously Dan Golan was under investigation. Now David Bortis is reportedly under SEC investigation.
I mean, they must be under it because there are so much things, so much history there, and what makes it even more in this particular case confusing is that you don't know if it's all by purpose or if it is a result of, if you excuse me, not being competent enough doing what you are assigned to do. So at some levels, being stupid is actually criminal. So if you do the wrong things, it might be that it was not your intention, but it's not okay anyhow. So I mean, if you are, I don't know how it is in the UK, but in many countries, if you're the CEO or a CFO, being stupid might actually make you a criminal, right? So yeah, and that's the case in.
Maria's quote for your live LinkedIn.
I'm trying to figure out how to put this so it's better. Oh my god.
Are you suggesting that family-owned businesses are destined to turn toxic?
No, I'm not suggesting that.
Because I know a few.
What I'm suggesting, and I think that the media industry is full of that, right? If you have a lot of small and mid-sized companies, there's a good chance that entrepreneurs are still in critical positions in the management team. And there are several cases where that is the reason why they are super successful. So it's not necessarily so that that's a bad thing. But the combination of having strong entrepreneurs in management positions with weak ownership, that's a danger. So it's not having strong entrepreneurs by itself. It is, of course, if the owners will also own everything, yeah, I guess then if you don't like the management, then you don't have that many options. But if there are other owners, either if you are listed, which might not be the case in most cases if you're small or medium size, but if you at least know the owners and you know the board. So I mean, if there's something you should do, I mean, is there a company board of directors? In some cases, there is no board of directors. Another just red flag, if it's super secret who are the owners, or no one wants to share who are actually owning the company, to me, that's a red flag. And I knew that was a red flag even prior to my last venture. But now I realize that is really something you should watch out for.
Yes, pieces ahead. So, obviously one of the reasons for the investigation was that they were found to be running a sub-investor scheme. At what point were you, or what made aware of this sub-investor scheme? Was this while you were still employed by them or after?
It was.
And also what are the signs that people should look out for?
Knowing that was after, right?
Yeah.
But there were signs. So again, back to like signs that you should look out for. So the last acquisition attempt, which was acquiring another Swedish company, as you know, if you read Tommy's excellent articles, you will know all about that. As a part of doing that, nowadays all of you guys have been working in like some kind of management position dealing with money. You know that today you fill out know your customer forms, left, right, center, when dealing with banks and when dealing with tax authorities and so on. And that's typically a pain in the ass, but it's still something that you can do. But when that turns out to be very sensitive, the information that you fill out in know your customer forms, that is a bit strange, right? Because usually those forms are supposed, the purpose for them is to be transparent with who are the guys behind the money. And if that becomes if you being in a senior management position, you are held in the dark, if you like, when it comes to the know your customer forms. That's a bit strange. So that was the first sign I noticed. It was that in situations where I should have been handed over the know your customer forms to submit them to different parties, but I was shortcutted or in different ways. And also it just dragged out in time. So filling out the know your customer form, maybe it takes a couple of days, but if that drags out 2 weeks, that is very strange. Because that means that there's something that is difficult to fill out, and usually it shouldn't be difficult. So when that happened, then I started to realize that maybe there is something behind this as well. And later it turned out that yes, there was, right? But that's, yeah.
Yeah. So I understand there was some rather erratic behaviour that originated back in Las Vegas at NAB. So you now have to go into the details, the specific details. But if someone works at a company and an owner of the company is starting to portray, exhibit those sort of behaviours, what should they do in that position when that is clearly a sign, a precursor to the company about to nosedive and shit is going to hit the fan?
Of course, it depends what kind of job you have, and it also depends how your financials and your kind of how, I mean, the easy answer is leave, but I mean that assumes that you have the funding to afford doing that. But I think I realize now afterwards that I should have left earlier. Depending on what position, I had the position where I was actually taking some legal risks with the position I had to actually become, sued myself. So the first thing I did, I thought about it over on the airplane back to Sweden. First thing I did when I got off the plane was submit all the forms to the authorities saying that I resign. I take no responsibility of this whatsoever. And that was only because I realized that, and this was still so early, so I didn't really know what would happen, but I realized that there are several scenarios how this could kind of pan out, where I can't take on some accountability for that. So if you're in a situation where you take that kind of risk, even more so, leave. That's my short recommendation. Because if some guys are doing things that are not correct, being dragged into something as a result of that, not so cool.
Keith, do you have a question?
We are trying to figure out how to ask the question without causing being sued.
That's exactly what we want. Come on.
When you, as a board of director, okay, that's what I read on some article. So how do you handle the allegedly being massage the financial data, because there are quite a lot of data in there financially you're aware of, so you can be sued by someone disclosing that, yeah? And you managed to disclose that, do you? You were board of director, yeah?
Yes.
You had the information
Actually, I was not board of director. I was in the management team.
in your management team, but you had those information in your hand. So how do you disclose that and as a whistleblower? Because when you submit the date form, okay, you say that.
So, I mean, that's a very good question, because of course you don't want to commit a crime just to show that other crimes has been committed, right? So, in my personal case, I have not revealed any information whatsoever. I have just, I sued them, right? So I did the opposite. I left the company and I sued them, and I pointed, if you will, the investigators in the right direction, saying that these are things they should look for. And I didn't have to share any kind of information to prove that, because the lack of information was to prove that things was not legit, if you like. And then in the case, and that was only in Sweden, which is a simpler case than in the US. In the US, I think the SEC is doing that investigation right now. Yeah, another tip, be careful with sharing information, because then you might end up doing the crime yourself. Or at least don't share it proactively. If you have the information and an investigation asks you for it, that's a different thing, because then it's not you sharing information, if you will, proactively.
Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
You're still going through quite an elongated legal process in the US by the sounds of it. How do you...
Yeah, but I am not involved in that. Not for now. I might be called as a witness,
okay.
But I am not a part of that process right now.
Quite interested how you stay so resilient going through that, and what your internal process is for managing quite an extreme stressful situation. Everyone has stresses at work, but that's quite a heightened situation. So I'm quite interested about how you personally manage that.
I mean, in my case, I was actually super lucky in this, because I managed to get a new job that was better than the one I had about 2 weeks after I left. So I mean, having a good job gives you some both confidence, of course, and also some it's easier to fight, if you like, if you know that you have a working reality outside of this all mess, which is a bit unfortunate, right? Because I think that those people who maybe end up in a tough situation and don't get a new job instantly are the ones who really should fight. So actually, the lawyers, after I did this, because I was the CEO of the Swedish entity, and the lawyers said that it was not so common, but they thought it was a good thing that the CEO actually ran the process against the company, because the company didn't do what it should have been doing. So maybe that's a bit unusual, but I think it was largely because circumstances was I had everything working and was kind of encouraged to make this the right way. So to me, it was not so important if I got any money out of it or not. It was more that if companies misbehave and no one really cares, I mean, what happens then in the end? So that was that was what gave me the energy to run the process.
The other question is, why did you agree to do this?
So we work in the smallest of the big industries, or the biggest of the small industries, whichever way you want to put it around, and we all talk about things behind the scenes. We all have our undercurrents and our back channel conversations, and we know things about things, but nobody says anything out loud. As a preamble to, I met Dan Gorman in 2018 and thought he was a bombastic bullshit merchant then. And then again in 2019 a couple of times, but he showed up at all of the right events. He came with a crew, and he came with people who carried a confidence, and they definitely sounded like they knew what they were doing. And then in 2020, COVID hit, and we all kind of went our different ways. But I'll just start through my messages. And someone that I know sent me a message in April 2020 saying that, have you seen this? Dan Gorman has been submitted to the SEC for sub-investment shareholdings in own zones, as it was at the time. So I guess my question is like two parts. We all know of things like this that go on all of the time. So other than tell Tommy about them, what should we do? Number two is, how did you not know? Because I knew in 2020 that they were a shady family.
Yep.
How in 2025 did we not know, or were we just assuming that this time it was going to be right?
No, but I knew about that as well. Afterwards, you could argue it was, first of all, I joined that company as a part of an acquisition, so I didn't apply for a job.
Yeah.
I joined a carve-out from the previous company. Now, in hindsight, maybe you shouldn't have done that. Maybe should have actually argued that they should have sold it to someone else. That was actually maybe even what we tried to make happen back then. The thing is that this particular company had, for some reason, don't ask me how, I don't want to know, a lot of cash, right? And they could close this acquisition much faster than anyone else could. And the seller side liked that, a swift process. There are several reasons to argue now that they shouldn't have done that. And yeah, so yeah, I guess that's the one lesson that I also noted those previous court cases prior to this happening. I had personal chats with Dan about that. I got some reassuring answers to some of them. If I would do the same exercise today, maybe I would ask more questions. Maybe I wouldn't take all the answers as lightly as I did back then.
You just run through ChatGPT.
But I think I think that ChatGPT got a lot of content to train on last year as well. So I think if you would have done that a year ago, you wouldn't have got even close as much as you get right now.
Yes, one more question.
It's actually two, but you kind of touched on it already, and I think it's quite quick. What's the number one thing, apart from leaving earlier, that you would do differently, if you could?
Yeah.
So the second is, what, obviously I know you're not involved in this point onward, but I guess in your opinion, what is the best case forward for ex-employer with what the future holds for them?
Take the last question again, so I get it. What's the best?
The first question was, what would you do?
Yeah, that I got. So the last one.
The last one is, what do you think is the best case scenario for
Okay, yeah, now
the
it.
situation going forward?
So And I think that of course differs a lot from one case to another. In this particular case, or in generally, what would I do differently? I would be a little bit less patient when it comes to those things that I already in advance knew were red flags. But when you get answers like that will be sorted out in a quarter or next quarter. And you want to hear that, right? Because that gives you some confidence that this is being worked on. But nowadays, after this, I wouldn't have that patience. So there were so many things that was brought up, and the answer was yeah. So I mean, an example. If another red flag is that if you're sitting in an executive management team and you can't see the financials, that's a red flag. So I understand that you don't want to share the financials with everyone in the company, but if you're in the management team and you can't actually see the P&L, that's a red flag. And if the answer is that we are having auditors working on it, so you're going to start seeing it next quarter. That's kind of what I, maybe a bit naive, thought was the case. Because when you brought that question up, the answer was that, yeah, we are having a team of auditors being brought in to fix this, and starting next month, we're going to have weekly or monthly financial review in the executive management team. So all of stuff like that, stuff like, as I said, if the owners, if it's secret who are the owners, so that is not something that can be shared. If, as I said, if those kind of know your customer forms and so on are also being processed very, in a very shadowy way, that's another red flag. So yeah, maybe I stop there on the red flags. On the topic, what's the best outcome for the employees? In this particular case, I think it's sorted out really well, because it happened to be that, in this case, the company was bad, but some of the products were great. So there were plenty of companies interested in acquiring both the technology, but also the team behind the technology. So in the latest case, I think all of them have been hired now by Ateliere TV. So if you're, I mean, that's actually a good assurance as well. Like if you're working on a good product, if you're doing great technology, that's the best insurance you can have, because there will always be someone interested in good products and good technology. So yeah, so that's the short answer to that.
I'd like to carry on, but the pizza's getting cold. I can see people looking over at the pizza. Gentlemen, say thank you.